But we have a really great discussion today and a very, very great entrepreneurial idea with Dr. Jihan Woods. And Dr. Woods, and Jihan, I'll let you go through your background and so forth, but I'll just briefly say, as a board certified psychiatrist with specialized training in child and adolescent psychiatry, and is an alum of the Drexel University College of Medicine, which is really, really awesome. So welcome, Jihan. Really glad to have you here today.
Thank you for inviting me. I think this is so, this is just the perfect day, I think, to bring the Future Fest to life. I was in the session prior to this on marketing and branding, and there's so many things that resonated with me that maybe we can talk about later, but this is awesome.
That's fantastic. And for the attendees, we have a really interesting story. I think you're going to really be surprised and pleased about Jihan's story. But let's start off with your educational and professional background.
Yes. So as you mentioned, I am a graduate of Drexel University College of Medicine. I did grow up in Philadelphia. I'm based in Dallas, Texas now. So I did go through the Philadelphia public school system. I attended Xavier University in Louisiana briefly. And my major there was biology at the time. And I changed my mind and went to business, which is ironic, right? Graduated from Hampton University with a degree in finance, and then changed my mind and thought that I wanted to go back to medicine because I like the people aspect of medicine, which is why I chose psychiatry. Psychiatry is certainly a very people-oriented field, and so it fit my personality so much more. And so I'm glad that I kind of switched careers. But now I'm in entrepreneurship as well, which has been a great journey, and which I'm sure we'll talk about. But so as of right now, I am trained in both adult psychiatry and child and adolescent psychiatry. I currently am working at a university in Texas in their health services department, treating college students. So I treat undergrad, master's, and PhD level students with any sort of mental health complaint.
That's great, great. And it's much needed today. I'm sure you're seeing, especially with COVID, there's just, so much more to deal with for everybody, and certainly adolescents and teens.
The relationship aspect in my field has definitely made a huge turn because we're doing a lot of telehealth.
Yeah.
Really kind of pivoted how we treat people.
That's interesting too. That's a whole separate topic we could explore. The rise of telehealth, telepsychiatry, telemedicine, right? It's a fascinating field right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
So just from a professional perspective, what are some of the problems that you're working to solve that you're very passionate about?
Yeah. So one of them is, of course, reducing the stigma of mental illness. I feel like we are becoming more and more aware, of mental illness and what that means, but there still is a huge stigma. I have a specific interest, especially in African-American students and adults, because that is a huge gap, I think, in the treatment, and not just in psychiatry, in other fields as well. And so for me, that is one of my kind of life goals, is to reduce that stigma. And so I'm always pleased to have students that walk into my office. Oh, this is the first time I've ever seen psychiatrists. What do I say? What do I do? And when they find out it really just is a conversation, I think it kind of soothes people and reduces that stigma that psychiatry can be such a invasive, line of work.
Okay, that's great. It's very, again, just so important right now and so much needed, especially today. So
I agree.
Thank you for all your great work.
Thank you.
So this seems to have led maybe to this new app idea that you kind of came upon and started on, and something I find really just amazing, your whole story. So it's called Find Black Santa.
Yes.
And so give us a little bit of a background here. What led you to the idea and the development of Find Black Santa, and describe to the audience what it is?
Yeah, sure. So Find Black Santa is a mobile app designed to connect families with Black Santas. I started the app in 2018. I had my set of twin boys. You might hear them in the background. I'm trying to hush them. They were born in 2015, and after just trying to find, we celebrate Christmas. And so after trying to find Santas that kind of represented our family, or experiences that represented our family, I really wanted to be more intentional about that. And so one of those intentionalities was, a Black Santa. And they were really hard to find. I could barely find any here in Dallas, Texas. And so I found one kind of last minute that first year. But then after that, it was kind of like kind of fell out of favor. And so I figured if I had this problem, there were probably other families that had the problem too. So that's kind of where the idea, where the idea started. A very simple problem, with I thought a very simple, solution. Let's just create a database of Santas that are available for families to connect with, and put it on an app. And so that's kind of how it started. So I had the idea late 2017. I decided to do crowdfunding through Kickstarter. And so I did about a 30-day Kickstarter in October. I think it was October of 2018. Okay. Was fully funded. Only asked for $5K because I knew that I was going to create the app myself using essentially a drag and drop app builder online. And so I was able to pull it off. And by that winter, the app was published both in Google Play and the App Store, which can be a very painful process administratively, getting all of the ducks in a row. And there's lots of things you have to do to get an app out in the world. But so that was in 2018. So this past season was our third season, our third Christmas. And since the start of publishing the app, we've garnered over 20,000 app downloads. My email list is at this point close to 12, 13, 14,000. I'd lost count. And we have a huge following of people who are just interested in, not only Black Santas, but just Christmas in general. And so I'm really excited about how far that it's come, because it's not just the app anymore. People are really connecting with other families. They are, this past season, I started a series called Hot Cocoa with Dr. Woods, and I would host, Black business owners of Christmas themed businesses and talking about what that means for children, Black children, all children, and what that means. And so it's been really, really fun for me because I get to merge not only my creativity, but I also get to merge my interest in mental health and why I feel like, the importance of these images of African-American individuals, positive images, and why they are so important for children.
That's great. You speak to kind of the essence of entrepreneurship, right? Which is you have a problem, right? And it's a personal problem, and you try to solve a problem for yourself. And sometimes our students, that's just a fantastic starting point. Don't try to solve necessarily even problems for others. Just start with problems you have and use that as a way to kind of build on something and grow. That's just pure entrepreneurship, which is really, really awesome.
Because when I started the project, it really was just a passion project. I really just wanted to do it for fun, see what would happen, see if people would like it. But it's kind of gone beyond that. It's more than a passion project. It's turned into a legit business, which has been fun to watch too. Kind of expanded into retail and other things. So that's been fun to see the business grow.
How was the crowdfunding campaign for you? What was that like? Because that can be a little scary and daunting.
That was painstaking. So it really, I'm a perfectionist in some ways, and so I wanted to get the Kickstarter just right. I researched how to do a Kickstarter. I purchased a video. I consulted with a photographer. He filmed the video for the Kickstarter, all the graphics and all that stuff. I wanted to make sure everything was perfect. So that part was kind of stressful for me because I wanted people to see the Kickstarter, know my story right away, and then be willing to donate. That's the goal. And so it really was a lot of marketing on my personal, social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, word of mouth through, my high school friends, college friends, family. And so those are that was my base. That was, my crowdfunding base. I had a few people I didn't know that contributed, but it was primarily just, word of mouth and connections, with people. And so that was a month-long process of begging people to donate in a fun way. But it certainly, I think many people would not have known about the app until I put it on Kickstarter. And Kickstarter, you can search for different keywords and things like that. So I still get hits on that account just because of it's Christmas related, Santa related, especially during the holiday season, like the fourth quarter of the year.
That's interesting. Yeah, one of the questions actually in the chat is basically how do you optimize and really get things going to get your potential donations. And one of the things that I've worked with several of our students working on crowdfunding and related campaigns is you try to get a lot of early momentum. And if you get a big bump in the beginning, you're always going to have a trail off. But the bigger bump you get in the beginning, the more likely you're going to be able to get funded, versus if you have a very slow ramp, it's going to get hard. It's going to be very hard to get that momentum. So it seems like building that early, friends and family and others that can get you going out of the gate strong seems to be a good technique.
Exactly. It was very, I guess, very grassroots approach to it. Really, I have a friend, so my friend would tell a friend who had children. But my target, specifically was families with children, and that could be parents primarily, but also grandparents, aunts, uncles, whatever. And so it kind of went down the line that way. But I would say, as far as like maximizing the potential for donations, I would say be consistent and have a marketing plan for the Kickstarter. Don't just throw the Kickstarter out there. You really do have to think of how you're going to market the Kickstarter. So I was posting literally at least once a day on my social media accounts. So and I'm pretty sure I was annoying, but that was the only way I could keep people aware of the Kickstarter to donate.
That's great. Yeah, we don't call it annoying in entrepreneurship. We call it persistent. Being persistent. In a nice way. I have a lot of questions about marketing and branding and so forth, but I want to go back to getting it developed, right? Because sometimes people think, wow, I don't have the skills to get something developed. And we'd love to know a little more of what platform you use. What was that experience like? What were maybe some of the pros and cons? Because it seems today, or it is today, that there's so many great ways now to get apps developed that don't require any or very little technical background. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your experience.
I have no technological background. I use an iPhone and have a MacBook, and I can set up a website. But that's pretty much the extent of my, technological know-how. And so when I researched like how I was going to create an app, I really had to get creative and try to figure, because there was nothing at the time out there like this of finding a Black Santa. I mean, there's certainly search like database type apps, for example, like Yelp, that's a database, type app. And so I kind of got some ideas from, Yelp, but as far as like Christmas related Santa, there was nothing out there. And so I had to think about what features that I wanted to put into the app. And that's really how I narrowed down which app builder that I was going to use. And so the one that I use is Good Barber, and there's a ton out there. There's like Appify, you probably know more than that. I don't remember because I researched this so long ago, but there's quite a few, and Good Barber just kind of fit, most of, as far as like, the subscription, usually most of them have like an annual subscription. And so, and the prices are pretty comparable across the board from what I remember. And so I picked the one that I felt like was going to give me what I needed as far as features, and went with it. And I literally build it similar like Squarespace. You kind of drag and drop, the pages and the links that you want into your app. I did work with a graphic designer, which is one of the upfront costs that I had. And so I wanted to make sure that it was pleasing to me, and it kind of gave some of my personality into the app. And so, it probably took me less than a month to actually get all the content, get the database, into the app before I kicked it off.
That's great. Again, there's so many great tools out there. I highly encourage everybody who's thinking about developing something, just do a little bit of research. I'll put one here in the chat. It's called Bubble, but again, it's one of many tools that are out there that can really help you get going today. And just you can build very, very fully functional apps with very little or no technical experience, which is awesome.
Right. One thing I wanted to mention was, I think it's so important. Why I found that it's been important because I've, gone to pitch competitions. It's so important to really have some connection or story with your business and your brand. Yeah. And so that was one of the reasons why I created the video. Looking back, the video is not quite, the tone of the brand that I have now. Right now, I feel like it's more playful, it's more relatable. But that's just the nature, I feel like, of business. You can change, you can rebrand, you can do stuff like that. Yeah. So I think, but the story remains always the same. The story has remained the same from the beginning. I want my children to experience, events that represent my family. And that has been, the kind of where I stand now and where it started.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, the evolution of the brand and the marketing, everything that can evolve over time as you learn more about your audience, what's appealing to them. But if you always have that core of here's the problem that we're really trying to solve, much of the rest of it will take care of itself over time because you'll be paying attention to those signals from the market and make adaptations as needed. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. So from what's the reception been like? I know I've seen you've gotten a fair amount of press about this, but also from a money perspective, because the crowdfunding only took you so far. So what sources of revenue do you rely on for it now?
So that first year, it helped out for the first year because not only when you do a Kickstarter you have to fund your project, but you also have to fund the rewards, and so that was costly. That was very costly, and so I was able to fund the app the first year with those rewards. The second year, I was not. So I put up the money up front for the subscription of the app service. And I was like, I gotta do something different because I can't just keep dishing out over $1K every year for this. So I needed to find a way to make money from the app, right? And so that's where one of my mistakes comes in. I didn't really think of it as a business at that, early on. I thought of it as a passion and not thinking, 5-10 years, down the road. And so I just lost my train of thought. What was your question? Tell me.
Yeah, just in terms of reception, and then and kind of with that, getting exposure, and what does that meant in terms of revenue, because you only had so much money to take it to a point.
So the second year, that's when I opened up an Etsy shop, and so all types of merchandise. It's pretty much apparel, t-shirts, sweatshirts. This year we did masks, and so that garnered a lot of attention too. People really wanting to identify with their Santa. And so literally having a logo that represented my brand on a t-shirt, people, it kind of flew off the shelves. It was, it's kind of grown since then. And so that was an easy way to, keep the business going.
Okay. That's great. And then just in terms of reception, so what's reception been like? It seems like you've gotten some good press, and what's maybe the most exciting press coverage that you've gotten?
The most exciting I think was, two. One was I was on MSNBC with Candace Gibson on a syndicated television show, which was awesome. Did a quick interview with him. So that was my first nationwide TV interview. I also was on Good Morning Texas the previous year, and I was just excited about that the year before. But I think being on MSNBC was great. And the second press, I think that really kind of blew. This was last year. That kind of exponentially grew. The number of downloads to the app was being featured on a media outlet called The Shade Room, and that is a Black-owned media outlet, and the target audiences are millennials, and so once they posted that, there was like 100,000, 200,000 likes, and people started just downloading the app wild crazy. So that was surely an exciting moment for me, seeing people receptive of it. I will say, this is just an aside note. So with press, I feel like comes some trolls. You get some.
Yeah, it does.
Especially when you have an app that's as niche, as Find Black Santa. I've been called lots of names. I get nasty emails sometimes, but I think it's just part of having an app that is very niche and targets a specific customer. And so the first year, it used to really hurt my feelings. I'm really out here just wanting to do something great for people, for myself, my family, but also, for people who want to share experiences like me. And so I've been called, a racist, and that's like the number one thing, So that I think was hurtful in the beginning, but now it doesn't really throw me off, anymore, because I know my intentions. I know my mission and vision of Find Black Santa, and so I'm not as affected by that anymore.
I think that speaks, Jihan, to resilience, and that's a really important part of entrepreneurship, right? Is that, you know, not everything is going to go your way, and you're going to have some unexpected
Right.
situations like what you're dealing with, but not giving up, being resilient, seeing through those because you believe in what you believe in the mission of what you're doing,
Right.
and that's your core. And I think that's, again, it always goes back to, I think, you know, a good entrepreneurship is about being very centered in something. And building around that, because there's going to be a lot of bad times, right? It's going to be things that don't go your way, unexpected problems, and seeing through that becomes then a big part of what you're doing. Because otherwise, if you didn't quite believe in it, you'd say, you know what, it's not worth all this other junk that comes with it, right? But I really believe in it, so I'm going to see through that.
I could have easily given up. But the amount of support outweighs tremendously, you know, the negative comments or, you know, the bogus reviews on the App Store. You know, it just kind of outweighs, you know, all of that. So you're right. I think it speaks to the resilience, you know, of it all. And sticking with it, I think, is why it has continued to be relevant in people's lives, especially this year, transitioning to more the virtual, you know, world. Many of our Santas have had to transition to, you know, doing Zoom calls, you know, with families, which I think has been really fun to see.
That's awesome. And how do you? So, just a question about balance, right? So you've got what you're doing here at Find Black Santa, and I want to talk in a minute about, you know, what's next. But then obviously you have your career, your day job, right? In terms of, you know, your psychiatry work, and then you have kids and everything else. So how do you wake up every day and like, how am I going to kind of work on this? Do you really try to have a good plan in place, or are you a little more kind of reactive? What's your general approach?
It's kind of a mix of both, you know, especially when you have kids at home. So they are in virtual school, and they have been in virtual school since September. So that has been fun. And so I really think I try not to overwhelm myself. You know, I have, you know, tasks, to-do lists and things like that, but if I don't get to it, it's okay for me. You know, I don't overwhelm myself and pressure myself, you know, in that way. You know, a lot of my, you know, creative time is after they go to sleep, which is around 7 o'clock my time. Like, okay. So the after hours are when I'm my most creative and can tackle some of the things related to my business. With Find Black Santa, it certainly is a seasonal business, and you know, I'm kind of thinking about, with, you know, the team that I have, how we're going to kind of expand it so that it's beyond just, you know, Christmas. And so I don't have to spend as much time as I would, let's say, when, you know, third quarter, beginning of fourth quarter rolls around, because that's when I start to get a little bit more busy.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, very seasonal. So I guess, you know, with that, what's next? What are you thinking beyond this? Because you have obviously you know, you've got a target audience here that you've built a lot of interest. You demonstrated that you could build something. So where do you take this from here?
I just saw, I got distracted by one of the comments by Greta Drexel alumni offered a virtual visit with Santa. That was me. That was one of the ways how we kind of pivoted and tried to relate to our customer base virtually. And so I put on, it was 2 virtual meetups with Santa. And so, you know, at that, I became a producer, a director, a writer, and created a 1-hour meetup with Santa. And each session garnered about 150 families, which was awesome. And so that we're going to continue that for this year and have more dates, because we sold out. So that was lots of fun. Yeah. Okay, so back to can you repeat your question?
Yeah, John, just, you know, what's next? So you've got a good foundation here. You've identified a target audience. You've learned a lot about marketing and branding. So where do you go from here with this basic idea? Now you want to expand it potentially into a broader audience?
Yes. So I decided that I wanted to, because I really enjoyed highlighting Black-owned businesses. And that was the premise of the series that I had with Hot Cocoa with Dr. Woods. People are really interested in supporting businesses that are overlooked many times simply because they are minority or Black-owned. And so I want to create a directory of Black-owned businesses, not only Christmas related. That's kind of the goal for this year. But beyond that, keep going to other industries as well. So that's what
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Yeah. So will that be a different app, you think, or
so that'll be web-based. That will not be an app.
Okay.
For the app, I'm going to keep, highlighting Santa's. I'll probably highlight also Christmas-related businesses. But because the way the app is set up and there's so many limitations, I just don't think it's the right app builder to use for this type of business. So I'm going to transition to just doing it online for now, and see where it goes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, use the right tool for the right thing, and so forth. That's really good. Exactly. And then hopefully, this year, if Christmas is a little more normal, you'll be able to get back into actually probably how it was built, right? Which is to use it for, more face to face. But, I think we're going to see more of this virtual world and this hybrid. So it probably serves both physical and virtual worlds.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. That's great. What else? How can people learn more about you and what you're doing and your efforts? I think you'd mentioned a couple of other initiatives that you have going on. And maybe if you can put anything in the chat, that would be helpful for people to be able to bookmark for later.
Sure. So the best way to learn more about the app itself is my website, which is findblacksanta.com, spelled all of the words. I'm also on Instagram at findblacksanta, FND. Wow. It's Find BLK Santa. Sorry. Find BLK Santa. I had to remove a couple letters because it was taken. But yes, Find BLK Santa is my my Instagram. I do have a website for the new business, for the online, directory. It's not developed yet. That's Find Black and Co. On Instagram. I did secure the domain, but it's in the very, very beginning stages. Professionally, I do have an Instagram. It is blackgirlsdoc, and that is my handle on Instagram. So if anyone wants to connect with me that way, that's cool too. I'm also on LinkedIn under my full name, Jihan Woods. So I'm there too. The other thing, I might as well just go ahead and plug the other thing that my sister and I are doing. She is a lawyer based out of Philly. And we decided to create a hair brand or a hair company. Again, solution-based. It's called Plat, P-L-A-T. And so we did start all social media and started advertising and hope to get up and running soon.
That's great. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Good. So, I love that, find ways to partner with others, build upon ideas, take ideas forward, just be very entrepreneurial, look for those opportunities. And
exactly.
And it's something all of us can do, right? I think every single one of us has that ability to do something that is interesting to us. And it may not always be about making money in the beginning. In my mind, money will follow. You shouldn't go in business.
Money and profit.
You should go in business to do something that's interesting. And, you do the right things. I think good things will happen over time.
Exactly.
So here's a question from Andrew. Okay. Wondering if you ran into specific challenges or limitations of using the app builder versus outsourcing development to a third party, where you'd have more flexibility and maybe more features and so forth. So I guess that trade-off of doing it yourself versus, trying to find more money to get it developed with a professional development firm.
Right there, the money part. And that has been my limitation in getting a developer to actually create the app exactly, how I want it. Now, as far as specific challenges, yes, there are. A big part of making, any sort of money through apps is advertisements, right? And so you can do internal ads where, I would create the ad and post it in the app, or you can do, work with an ad, like a AdSense, through Google or something where we have those pop-up ads that come up on games that you play or whatever like that. And so that has been difficult as far as the internal ads. It's just it's not very user-friendly. And I think there was a huge opportunity lost for me to earn any revenue from ads since opening the app.
Okay.
Yeah, so that I think that has been the biggest. And the other thing is the app at the time, when I created the app, it didn't have the option to shop directly through the app. So that was also a challenge too when I, opening the shop and getting the retail stuff started. They have that capability now, but again, it's still very, I think, archaic in my opinion. So it's not very user friendly. So I'm considering switching to a different app builder. I just haven't figured out which one.
Yeah, and that's okay. when we again work with our students, what we generally advise is that get something out there, right? Get a minimum viable product, get something out there that really tests whether or not this is something the market wants. Because at the end of the day, as you've seen, we can build anything, but does the market care?
Exactly.
So get something out there, test the ideas around the market. I think in your case, you got a lot of great press that really accelerated it, maybe more than typical, more than what you would have expected.
Yes.
But then there is always that opportunity. If you have an audience, it's okay. Now we've touched on a nerve here. We've got something. Now let's think about how do we potentially rebuild it into a more fully fledged app that kind of maximizes revenue opportunities, allows us to do more things.
Right.
But that's okay. I'm a big fan of, let's get something out there.
Exactly.
Let's take those first steps, right?
Exactly. One thing I'll say, so I have this, so when I first started to see how far I've come, I did bring this is the journal that I used when I first started the app. And so I literally wrote down my ideas, and this is my Kickstarter. This is my
That's great.
And I drew out what I wanted the Kickstarter to look like. I drew, find it out really quickly. I know we're running out of time, but I kind of drew out what I wanted, all of like my icons to look like on the web. Like I had I didn't use candy canes, some other wreath, some other random things. And so it really started just from an idea. It literally just started from an idea and envisioning. One in the session before this one with, please correct me, Deborah Malinix, yes.
Yeah.
One thing that she mentioned was seeing yourself at the finish line, or seeing yourself at the end result. And when I started the app, I saw myself at the end result. I didn't know how I was going to get there. I really did not know how. I was a resident at the time, so I wasn't making a whole lot of money, comparatively speaking. And so I didn't have the funds to invest a whole lot of money into this. But I did envision myself with a complete finished app on Apple, in the App Store.
That's great.
And so that I think, it doesn't have to be perfect. Right. I'm a perfectionist. I get stuck on being perfect, but I let that go because I can really hinder myself in growing my business.
Great. I just put something in the chat because you saw your drawings there. And there's this app, it's called Marvel app. And some of these new platforms have these features. You literally, you draw something on a piece of paper, you take a picture of it with the app, and you create a little bit of user flow, and it basically creates a basic visualization of what this thing could be. Obviously, it's not going to be your final version, but again, the barrier to entry is so low in terms of being able to test basic ideas that you may have.
I agree. There's so many tools that you can use to create mock-ups. So many tools, free tools too. And so like Canva, for example, people use Canva and just create mock-ups of of an app, splash screen or whatever. And so it's available there. When I first started out, I did work with a graphic designer to and those are the images that you see on the Kickstarter. I think I put those images on the Kickstarter of some of the pages of the screens of the app, just so people could kind of connect with it and see what I really was trying to do. But it's certainly not required. That was a cost. That was an added cost to start the app. So you can create it yourself.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Greta has a question. Who is on your team currently, both formally and informally? Okay,
so I have 3 people on my team. One of them is Elena Robinson. She really is my mom's really, really good friend, but she is an entrepreneur herself. She runs a consultant business, a very successful consulting business. And so she helps me kind of strategize on my business. I also have Elena Robinson. She is in marketing. She has a degree in marketing. She works in marketing. And so she has helped with branding, Find Black Santa. And then I also have Ty Dandy. She has a master's degree in social policy, social work. So she's really into the relationship building connections. And so she has really helped me with starting the series, Hot Cocoa with Dr. Woods, and bringing in guests and building connections and relationships with people. So those are the 3 other people that I have on my team.
That's great. And having people on your team obviously gives you the ability to do more. And that's, a big part of the early days. You're only 24 hours in the day, right?
Exactly. And they're a think tank. These are people that I kind of hand selected because they have great ideas. They're really smart and they know what they're doing in their respective fields. way smarter than I am, and so I needed them to help push me to do some of the things that we did this year with Find Black Santa, or last year.
I think it's not even about somebody's smarter or not. I think it's complementary skills, right? Find people. I always tell our students, like, you don't need two of you, right? You need one of you and then one of somebody else that complements and supplements skills that you don't have, and another person. And a good team has those great mix of skills that allows you to get more range and more capacity, because again, there's only 24 hours in the day. We all have the things typically that we're dealing with, and to kind of go beyond yourself. To get more bandwidth involves other people, and that's such a core part of being successful in entrepreneurship, is building a team.
Exactly, because I will say, at first year I was burnt out. Like, I was like so exhausted from getting everything, because I was doing it by myself, and trying to get people interested, trying to get people wanting to donate. It was hourless night, like sleepless nights.
Yeah.
So having people to throw ideas off of and help me strategize and get my vision together has been really, really helpful for my business.
And find people that believe what you believe. I think, again, that kind of speaks to the core, because everybody else also has to have that same resilience and persistence to some degree. And if everyone believes what you believe and believes in the mission of what you're doing, then hopefully good things will happen.
One thing I wanted to mention that you talked about briefly was like press, like how like garnering press. And so I also think that's important. Although press does not equal sales, does not equal money. It does not. It equals exposure and plus maybe a few dollars, but in my experience. And so I think you need the right press, like the right press that hits your target audience. But the way that I garnered press in the beginning was I wrote it, and in my little journal, like I literally wrote down blogs, I wrote down news outlets. I found some, going like just searching articles that kind of related to Christmas Santa, what journalists wrote these articles. Because I literally cold emailed every single person or business on my list. And half of them did not respond. Most of them did not respond. Yeah. But the ones that did definitely got some of the buzz going for Find Black Santa. And again, my PR person at the time, it was just me. I kind of still am my PR person. So, but I don't have to reach out anymore, which is nice. They're around September, October, news outlets reach out to me, which is great. It's kind of, the press part kind of runs itself now.
Yeah. Actually, Smart Biz Philly is on today. Nathan, who I know it can provide some press for the Philadelphia area. So maybe you can connect with Nathan at some point.
Excellent.
His Twitter handles there. Yeah. Your point about press is a really important one, because we all seek, great press, but I always say press has a shelf life, right? And it's usually much shorter than you think. You get the press article, and you're famous for a week, and then next week there's you're pushed to the side, right, by new news that's coming. So, so press strategy is hard. It will help you a bit. It gives you a little bit of a bump, but it's not. It tends to be more tactical and not necessarily. Always going to have that persistency that you expect, not unless you're getting it every week. But then if you're getting it every week, then people get tired of you being in the press, and
exactly.
You're out anyway. So
and I found so I've been on digitally anyway, pretty much every media, so like CNN, NBC, MSNBC, kind of pretty much everywhere. But this year I started focusing on more of the relationships that I've garnered like over the years with education. So like Drexel, like out to Drexel. I went to Hampton, reaching out to Hampton, University, reaching out to just like alma maters, just to let other alumni and other students, know about, Find Black Santa. And in no way really trying to spread the word about Find Black Santa, because at this point, we're okay. At a point where, I'm happy, kind of where we are, but I think it's also important as a business to be able to tell your story and help someone else who's trying to get into what you're into.
Exactly. And again, press, I don't think is necessarily a sales tool. It's really about exposure and branding, and understand what the role of journalists, right, is to tell good stories. And they're not there to sell your business. They're there to tell good stories, and that's what you want to hear. And that's just part of a portfolio of a lot of things that you need from a marketing and branding perspective. Yeah,
exactly.
Really good. So we only have a couple more minutes here, Jihan. Anything else that you'd like to mention? Anything that we haven't touched on today that would be you think interesting for our audience?
Um, I will just reiterate what you mentioned. You know, yes, you want to be able to, well, most people want to be able to make a living off of their ideas, right? But if money is your focus, I feel like the passion and the drive behind it and the motivation behind it kind of gets blurry, right? And I just think it's so important to keep that drive and keep your core values, you know, within your business. Stick with them, you know, and don't change. Because I could have easily said, oh, these people hate this idea. You know, they think I'm this, they think I'm that. I'm going to give up, or I'm going to change what I do, or maybe I'll just find all Santas. You know, like, no, this is my niche. This is what is important to me, for my children, for my, you know, customer base, and that's what I want to rock with. So
goes back to that core, exactly.
Exactly.
And, you know, believing in what you believe and being able to stick with it. It's so fundamental. There's a very good book by a guy named Simon Sinek, and the book's, I think it's about 10 years old now, but it's called Start With Why. And fundamentally the book is about business and the growth of companies, but basically said, as you grow, you need to find people that believe what you believe. And that's kind of struck me as the core that, you know, as an entrepreneur, especially as you're getting started, really kind of examine that. What motivates you? Why do you believe what you believe? Because if you can hold on to that, then as you build your team, as you grow, as you encounter challenges, difficulties, but also great opportunities, again, that's something that you can fall back on, which I think is really important here.
Absolutely. I agree.
There's a question about the app language that the app was written in.
Oh yeah, so I don't know, because
yeah, that's the beauty of these platforms, right? It just generates stuff.
So, yep. I use an app builder platform. There's plenty out there. So the one that I use is goodbarber.com. But there's like 20, 30 plus or more out there that are
and more every day. And they're zero code or low code. They generate the code, and it's, you know, a lot of it's drag and drop, and, you know, very intuitive. And these tools are only going to get smarter and smarter in coming years, where, you know, really anybody will be, I'll say anybody, but mostly anybody will be able to create an app, a basic app, but even more sophisticated apps. There's, you know, there's some really good tools out there that are incredible. And it's mind-boggling.
You know, exactly. You can build an app with Squarespace. You can build if you can build a website with Squarespace, you can build an app with one of these app builders. It's very simple, very easy.
That's why I'm in higher education now, because I started my career as a software developer.
Okay.
And I realized that further down the line that this stuff was getting more and more sophisticated. It was getting easier and easier to create. I was going to be out of a job someday if I didn't make some pivots here. So I moved into, you know, new realms of business and entrepreneurship and you know, a variety of startups. And then and that's even the stuff that we did as one of our startups about 10 years ago. All the work that we had to do to manually create certain parts of our application today, you can just buy off the shelf, and it's just amazing. So the trajectory of these platforms are just incredible.
They really are. Make life so much easier, and make business, you know, development so much more accessible to people.
Yeah, and you can be, you know, you can really pivot more easily. You can adapt. You can change, right? You can make updates, right, as things change. So just so much flexibility in these tools and so forth.
Yeah.
Question here: what was it like creating your pitch to journalists and news outlets when seeking press for promoting the app?
So the first year I was promoting the Kickstarter, and so I didn't even have the app. It was just an idea. It literally I did not have the app created, nothing. So it was really just pitching the Kickstarter. I had the Kickstarter all created, and then telling my story. It really was just telling my why, like you mentioned, like telling why I wanted to do this, why this is important now for me, and why they should, you know, talk about it, you know. And then the following year, it was more so reaching out to press as far as like why the app is important, you know, talking about specifically about the app and why, you know, it's necessary for something like this to exist. And then last year, it kind of just took off on its own.
That's great. That's great. Good. Unless there's any more questions in the chat, or Jihan, if you have anything else you'd like to share, but I think we can wrap this up. That'll give us everybody about 10 minutes before the next session. But Jihan, anything else? Or we?
No, I think that's all.
Good.
really great discussion. I appreciate being able to do this and tell my story, and just know that nothing has to be perfect. Just, just have the passion and try it out. You never know.
So much great advice. We're proud to have you as a dragon. This is awesome. When you're able to get back to Philadelphia someday, we'd love to just be on campus. Maybe we can do something, physical event once we get back to our physical events. But yeah, this is really great, and no doubt we'll continue to be in touch. So Dr. Woods, thank you for your time today. I know your time is so precious. Let us know if we can help in any way, and thanks for your great advice today to our students and alums. It was really good having you here.
Yes, thank you for all your great questions. You guys have a good. Oh, my LinkedIn is Jihan Woods. So
great.
Okay.
And we can send it. If anybody has any questions, you can reach out to Melissa or I or Debbie, and we can get Jihan's information to you. Good.
All right.
Stay safe there in Texas. Hopefully, things settle down.
Exactly. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Bye. I'll see everyone at the 1 o'clock sessions. Bye-bye.